Hey guys, Dr. St. Jean here at Unity Chiropractic Center in Lincoln Park, Chicago. Today's talk is video 3 in our Eliminating Carpal Tunnel Naturally video series. I'm going to share with you in this video how carpal tunnel syndrome should be properly diagnosed. That is super important. I can't overemphasize that. But in the meantime, feel free to check below the video for the link to the rest of the series if you haven't seen it. So again, I can't emphasize enough the importance of arriving at the correct diagnosis. That's whether we're talking about physical medicine like carpal tunnel syndrome or internal medicine, endocrinology, neurology, etc. Regardless, it's impossible to render effective treatment if you don't know what you're treating. So with that said, there are really two camps that are problematic when it comes to carpal tunnel diagnosis. That would be the first camp is a large amount of, unfortunately, a large amount of docs who miss the diagnosis completely. So that's sad. While the other camp is filled with those who think any kind of numbness and tingling affecting the hand must be carpal tunnel, right? Both create problems in this area of medicine, and that's why I'm putting this up, so we're all on the same page here, especially you, the patient. One of the most important things that needs to happen when you go to your doctor and you think you might have carpal tunnel syndrome is a carefully and well thought out historical evaluation, or the history, right? That's the portion of your appointment where the doctor should listen to your story and hopefully not interrupt unless absolutely necessary, and then certain questions they're going to use to help kind of begin formulating their diagnostic possibilities based on your story, right? With a solid understanding of upper extremity anatomy and clinical neurology, the practitioner you're working with should really be able to almost arrive at the diagnosis of carpal tunnel or not before they even get to the exam. That's the goal. 80%, I think we say, 80% I would say, of the diagnosis should be made in the history. The exam is then just used to kind of substantiate what you're thinking in the history and determine whether or not further testing, specialized testing, is necessary. But once you get to the exam portion, especially when you're suspecting carpal tunnel, you might see a couple positive signs, and these are things that you want to look for, see if your doctor's checking. Phelan sign might be positive, that's an orthopedic test. Another orthopedic test that might be positive is carpal compression test. Your doc might also observe some sensory abnormalities when examining the area of your hand that is innervated by the median nerve. So basically right in here, I don't know if you can see that, right in here. Look to my other video, I showed you specifically what they are. If they see motor weaknesses, or motor abnormalities such as weakness, which shows up as loss of grip strength or wasting of this area of the thumb, then that's something that that tells us that this situation has been going on for way too long. Motor signs don't usually show up until a lot later. It usually is sensory first, then motor. But that might still be something they see in the exam. But again, sensory things like numbness and tingling in the first, second, third, and then the half of the fourth digit, the side closest to your thumb, would be common. And those are some things you might want to just keep in the back of your mind that should be looked at when they're looking at carpal tunnel, instead of just being like, oh, you have numbness, you have carpal tunnel. That would not be good. In terms of lab testing, there's really no blood, urine, saliva, etc. panels for carpal tunnel specifically. But there's testing, of course, that exists for some of the conditions that are associated with carpal tunnel, right? We can lab test for diabetes, we can lab test for hypothyroidism or rheumatoid arthritis, etc. You get the point. And those types of lab tests might be performed when clinically indicated, when we might suspect that one of those conditions is playing a role or causing the carpal tunnel. Many folks think imaging is like a no-brainer when it comes to CTS, but the reality is that there's really no routine imaging studies for carpal tunnel. MRI I've seen used preoperatively if like a space-occupying lesion is present, but the MRI doesn't really rule out the myriad of other differential diagnoses and possibilities, and it's also time-consuming and costly, right? So that's a less used form of imaging. Ultrasonography has been used usually as an adjunct to electrodiagnostic studies, which I'm about to talk about. But again, it's not really routine. And I would say from experience, a good history and followed by a solid exam combined with what we're about to talk about, electrophysiological studies, is probably the best route. Definitely. Electrophysiological studies include EMG, which is also known as electromyography, and NCS, which is nerve conduction studies. These are more of the diagnostic standards, I guess you could say, when it comes to carpal tunnel diagnosis. When you present with carpal tunnel signs and symptoms, like we discussed in video 1 of this series, and you have, in conjunction with that, abnormalities identified on the electrophysiologic testing, depending on which your doctor chooses. If it was me, I'd go with NCS, nerve conduction studies. That helps to solidify your carpal tunnel diagnosis. Really important there. So the cool thing too about these studies is that you simultaneously rule out other potential neurodiagnoses that can, of course, then be excluded, and puts you one step closer to receiving that effective care and not making things confusing. And that's really important. You want to get to the bottom of it, because carpal tunnel is a pain in the butt, or I should say pain in the wrist, but you got to get the right diagnosis. So there you have it. You know what should be done in terms of arriving at a proper diagnosis for carpal tunnel. This is the process that kind of should be taken. Feel free to click below the video to get access to the rest of this video series. Hopefully you're watching in order, otherwise this might not make too much sense. But if you're ready to take the next step and you think you want to eliminate your carpal tunnel pain without the use of drugs, without the use of surgery, and you want to access me one-on-one, where we can get to that root cause of what's actually causing your carpal tunnel and relieve it, click below. We have a website link right to our schedule. You can schedule an appointment now. This is Dr. St. Jean. I hope you found this useful and helpful. Be well, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.